So you know how much you love keeping up with the latest in startups, right? The energy, the innovation, always pushing boundaries.
Absolutely.
Well, we found a story that takes that startup hustle to a whole other level, and it's all about a company called EquityBee.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
They're unlocking a level of wealth in startups that most people don't even realize is there.
Hidden wealth in startups. Tell me more.
That's exactly what I thought. We hear about those founders striking gold and early investors cashing in, but what about the employees?
Yeah, the ones actually building the company from the ground up, right?
Exactly. Many of them get stock options as part of their compensation, but there's a catch. Actually using those options often means needing a big chunk of cash up front.
Yeah, that makes sense. Not everyone has that kind of cash lying around, especially with the cost of living these days.
And that's especially true in those expensive tech hubs.
Oh, absolutely. Places like Silicon Valley, where the rent alone can eat up a huge chunk of your paycheck.
So you're telling me there's potentially life-changing money just sitting there, but it's locked behind this paywall.
It's a huge problem, and it's way bigger than people realize. It's about access and opportunity.
That's got to be incredibly frustrating. Imagine working at the next Google, totally believe in what they're doing, but you have to watch other people cash in because you couldn't afford to exercise those stock options.
And that's exactly the gap EquityBee saw, and they decided to do something about it.
So EquityBee swoops in with a solution, but it's not your typical loan, is it?
Not at all. Instead of burdening employees with more debt, they created this collaborative funding model. It's almost like a specialized crowdfunding platform.
Okay, so walk me through how that works.
Basically, they connect these employees, the ones with valuable stock options but lacking that upfront cash, with investors who are looking for promising opportunities in startups.
So it's a win-win. Employees get to exercise their options, actually participate in the company's success, and investors, they get a piece of the pie.
Exactly. But it's carefully structured to benefit everyone involved.
It's like they're playing matchmaker, but with startup wealth.
Hmm.
But I have a feeling it's more than just throwing money at the problem, right? I've heard EquityBee is really big on education.
Oh, absolutely. They're not just about handing out money. They really want to empower their users. They provide them with the knowledge to understand stock options, venture capital, that whole world of startup finance.
So it's about leveling the playing field.
Exactly. They have this free calculator on their website where you can plug in your stock option details and see the potential future value.
That's amazing. So no matter what your background is, you can make informed decisions.
That's the goal.
That's huge because we're talking about information asymmetry, right?
Exactly, and you're right to point that out. Not everyone may be familiar with that term.
Yeah, some people listening might be thinking, information what?
Basically, it means that in any deal, one side often has more information than the other. In this case, it's those seasoned investors versus employees who are new to this, and that can lead to some unfair advantages.
Right, someone could get taken advantage of.
Exactly. But by providing these resources and tools, EquityBee levels the playing field. Everyone can make informed decisions. Knowledge is power, right?
Especially when we're talking about something with as much earning potential as stock options. But you know what they say about great power.
Comes great responsibility.
You got it. And that's something EquityBee's had to navigate as they've grown, attracting millions in funding. Some really big names, too.
And that kind of success, it definitely comes with its own set of challenges. It's a classic startup story, right? Grow too fast and you risk compromising everything, but move too slowly and you become irrelevant.
It's a tough balance for sure, a real tightrope walk. So how's EquityBee managing? What kind of challenges have they come up against while scaling up?
Well, one of the biggest hurdles has been all the regulations. We're talking about a company working in a very specific niche within an already heavily regulated industry.
Yeah, it's not like they could just set up shop and start handing out money, right?
Exactly. They've had to make sure every single step they take is compliant with all these rules, and that means they need a deep understanding of the legal and financial landscape.
So give me an example. What's one regulation they've really had to work around?
Well, take securities laws, for example. Those govern how stock, especially in private companies, can be bought and sold. Early on, there were questions about whether EquityBee's model could be seen as creating these unregistered securities.
That sounds like a pretty big deal. So how do they handle that?
They worked really closely with legal experts to structure everything so it was compliant. A lot of legal finessing to make sure it was all above board, which, trust me, can be both costly and time-consuming for a startup.
Not something you want to mess around with.
Yeah.
Okay, so regulations are one thing, but there's also got to keep both the investors and the employees happy, right? That can't be easy because those interests don't always line up.
And that's another challenge they face: stakeholder management. Investors, they're looking for a return on their investment, while employees are focused on maximizing their gains.
Right, two different perspectives.
Finding that sweet spot where everyone feels they're getting a fair deal, that's an ongoing process. For EquityBee, it means making sure that the terms of their agreements are attractive to both sides: investors who want those returns and employees who want to unlock their stock options.
It sounds like they're walking a tightrope, juggling chainsaws, while riding a unicycle all at the same time. But there's something else about their story that's really interesting to me, and it goes back to this idea of access and opportunity.
Absolutely. Their focus on inclusion is so crucial, and it's really making a difference.
How so?
By making it possible for a wider range of employees to get in on stock options, they're changing who benefits from this whole startup wealth creation.
So it's about diversifying who gets a seat at the table.
Exactly. And it's not just about being nice. It's about recognizing that talent comes from everywhere.
It's not just the right thing to do, it's good business.
Right. Inclusive businesses, they're often more innovative. They're more in tune with the needs of a diverse customer base, and that can lead to greater success. EquityBee is a perfect example of how inclusion isn't just some feel-good story. It's a smart business strategy.
So we've got these regulatory hurdles, stakeholder management, this need to scale quickly, and a commitment to inclusion. Anything else EquityBee has to deal with?
Well, they've got some pretty fierce competition. The fintech space is heating up.
A lot of companies vying for that same slice of the pie.
New players are popping up all the time, so EquityBee has had to constantly adapt, refine its model, really set itself apart.
How have they done that? What makes them stand out in such a crowded space?
It goes back to what we were saying about innovation. One thing they've focused on is building a strong community around their platform. They're connecting employees, investors, industry experts, you name it.
So it's not just a transaction, it's about building a network.
Exactly. It's about adding value for everyone involved.
It sounds like they've got all their bases covered. But it hasn't been all smooth sailing. Let's get into some of those specific obstacles they faced and how they tackled them. For instance, you mentioned the regulatory landscape. What's an example of a specific regulation that was a real challenge for them? All right, so give me an example. What's a regulatory hurdle that EquityBee really had to work around?
Well, a great example is exactly what we were talking about with securities laws.
Hmm.
Remember, those govern how stock, especially in private companies, can be bought and sold.
Right, right.
Early on, there were questions about whether EquityBee's model might be seen as creating unregistered securities.
Oh, so they were walking a fine line.
Exactly. So to navigate that, they had to work really closely with legal experts.
To make sure everything was by the book.
Exactly. They had to structure their agreements in a way that met all those requirements. A lot of legal finessing to make sure everything was above board, which can be a headache for any company.
Especially a young company that's trying to grow.
Exactly. But it shows they were serious about doing things the right way.
No cutting corners.
And that's really helped them build trust.
It makes sense. It's like they've created a blueprint for how to navigate the startup world, right?
Totally. And it's not just for other fintech companies. These are lessons for any entrepreneur in any field.
So what are some of the key takeaways here? What can we learn from EquityBee's journey?
Well, first, it's about finding those hidden opportunities, the ones that seem so obvious in hindsight.
Like the whole stock option problem.
Exactly. They saw a problem and found an innovative solution, but they also knew how to execute that vision, how to be resilient and adapt along the way, especially with all those regulations.
And how important is it to have a good team?
Oh, it's crucial, especially legal and financial experts who really understand the landscape.
Makes all the difference.
It does. But for me, what really stands out is their commitment to empowerment. They're not just trying to profit from a broken system. They're trying to make information and opportunities more accessible for everyone.
And that's something we can all get behind.
Absolutely.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into EquityBee and the world of startup wealth. But now I want to hear from you, our listener.
Yes. We want to hear from you.
If EquityBee is out there solving this problem, this issue of hidden wealth and unequal access, what other opportunities are ripe for disruption in your world? What hidden gaps are waiting to be filled? What seemingly small problem, if solved, could unlock incredible value for others? Keep your eyes open, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the most brilliant ideas are the ones hiding in plain sight.
That's right. Go out there and find them.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.